drop these. Everybody drop these. Everybody drop these. Everybody drop these. Everybody.
Ah, he wants to go off-road!
Are you gonna shoot that shot when you get the lane?
Yo, he was right on my ass, man.
You were wide open.
Who wrote this?
I did.
Ask him if he got the letter.
Did you get the letter?
What letter?
What's up, man? About to catch a fade, huh?
Hello. My name is Inigo Montoya.
Living dead.
Drop these. Everybody.
Let the hate flow through you.
Hey, there we are.
Hey. Oh,
All
no.
right. Oh,
Not
no.
all of your parts.
Well, you know, I'm still the same person, depending on your philosophical viewpoint. Hello, everybody. Excuse me. Oh, hello, everybody, including Miss Tina Celine.
Wow. We have a famous viewer today.
Oh, yeah.
I am.
You am? Okay.
I am. I don't know, man.
Yeah. No,
I'm having a weird day of it today.
Same here. So, for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, and for those of you who have forgotten, you are listening to The Real Boys. We're a movie discussion podcast. Normally, we have up to 8 people on at a time.
Sometimes as little as 2.
Sometimes as little as 2. Fridays tend to be a little scarce because Fridays are our special editions where we don't do a favorite movie. We do. I don't know what that comment is supposed to mean, but that's okay. Oh, I see. Okay.
It's a weird ass fat.
Yeah, most of it does tend to be. So normally we do 5 favorite movies from each of the panel members, so about 40 of them. Every other Friday we do something that the real wheel decides. And this week, or several weeks ago, and every week since, it's
been damn near a month.
It's been a while since we did a Friday episode, so this is John Dies at the End, also known as J-Date.
It's only known as J-Date to you, Dylan.
I don't think that's true. I think a lot of people refer to this movie as that.
Really?
Let's just go with it.
Okay.
For people who don't know, John Dies at the End is a movie based on a novel written by, I believe, David Wong, who was one of the guys at Cracked. If you remember Cracked magazine, Cracked Online, way back in the day. It is a surreal, dark science fiction horror comedy. There's a lot of qualifiers to it as a genre.
The book, like the reason that I read the book to begin with was it was explained to me as if Douglas Adams wrote an H.P. Lovecraft story. And I think that's very accurate as to what this is.
Well, that makes one of us who's read the book because I haven't. And I had tried to watch the movie way back in college, like back when it came out. And for one reason or another, I had never finished it. Had you seen the movie before we chose it for the wheel?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Since nobody here is going to give me a bunch of shit for comparing this to the book, I'm going to end up comparing this to the book a lot, which
Michael, you're such an asshole.
I know, but surprisingly, it does a very good job with like turning the book stuff into the movie. Unfortunately, it was a very low budget movie, so like the whole middle part of this movie takes place at that mall that they go to. They go to a different dimension, they're fighting all sorts of stuff, and it's just not in the movie at all. So the stuff that they sort of took out the second act of the book, which is where all of the stuff happens.
Okay.
And they just discarded it. And I still think it makes a reasonably it makes like a reasonably understandable movie.
Mm-hmm.
But it is missing out on the part that would make this a much more fun movie.
Yeah. Well, a little bit about what the movie is a guy is telling Paul Giamatti in a diner about a time that he and his friend John, from the title, had a hard time with some supernatural stuff. And it all stems from a drug called soy sauce, which kind of like which allows your brain to break through like the dimensional barrier, kind of. It's very trippy. It's very trippy, very extra dimensional. And it is him recounting a story of when they ultimately went to another dimension to kill a biological monster computer that was trying to take over our universe. And then you find out that the drug is still kind of a thing in the world, and the story kind of, it ends on a ...
Yeah. Oh yeah, it definitely does. And there's 2 more books after this, and I think if the movie would have done well, they probably would have made the sequel movies as well. But these guys that are playing our 2 main characters are
fine.
They're fine, and that's the
fine.
problem, because in the book they are real dipshits. Like,
right.
They suck. And I don't think, because this is they suck, but they're supposed to suck. Like, that's the point of sort of them. The movie is a Hollywood movie, so they went more towards the middle. They made them assholes but still charming.
Yeah.
And it wasn't super accurate to the characters. It's weird though, because everybody else is
yeah,
it's true, everybody sucks in their own way. But it's weird because everybody else in the movie, it's like all these great character actors all over this movie. Like Clancy Brown is in it playing. He's so good.
He's good in everything.
Doug Jones is in it, who I love. He always plays such strange characters.
It's nice to see Doug Jones outside of prosthetics, outside of makeup.
And he still is a strange looking dude.
Oh, he's still weird looking, and he's good at it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's great. And then obviously Paul Giamatti is great in everything that he does. So
yeah.
But yeah, and then you put the main characters of this movie as 2 standard white guys.
They're a little schlubby.
A little schlubby. Very broy. And again, they don't do it over the top as much as they should. Because John's supposed to be a real like cocky asshole, and then David's supposed to be like a real schlubby loser.
I got the feeling from the actor's performance that the novel character is supposed to be over the top imitation punk. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Where he's very full of himself and doesn't quite have the stuff to back it up, but from Dave's point of view, he does.
Well, that's the other thing. He sort of does have what it takes to back it up, because he is, despite being a bumbling asshole, and a lot of stuff happens that, like, because he's so broy, at the very beginning of the movie, when they're fighting this, like, it's almost like a James Bond cold open
Yeah.
where they get called to a case, and it's like this meat monster in a basement. And then in order to prevent these guys from just running away, all they do is turn the doorknob into a dick. And
Yep.
John just won't touch it. They just won't touch it because it's a dick.
Yeah.
Which is so funny. Like, it's like subversive. Like, you could grab this dick and turn it and leave, but they're not going to because it's a dick. They would rather fight the monster.
Yeah. That is very kind of characteristic of David Wong? Man, I can't remember. Yeah, David Wong's writing.
David Wong. Yeah, I'm actually looking at it. He started using his real name.
Yeah.
And now I lost it again. God damn it. Jason Pargin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back
because he stopped.
Go for it.
He stopped using David Wong because,
Yeah, modernization.
Yeah, but there's also a reason that he called himself that. I mean, he uses that for the character in the book / movie, where he just took the two most, like, John David and Wong are two, like, very inconspicuous, but it's sort of like Ford Prefect, where where it, he thinks it makes sense, but it does sort of stick out a little bit more than he would like it to.
No, I used to be a huge fan of the Cracked website back in like 2010. Back before it became this diluted mess of clickbait that it's been in the last like 10 years or so. But I remember kind of looking into this guy and seeing John dies at the end, and then the title of the second book is "This Book is Full of Spiders," which is a great title for a novel. And I just never gotten around to reading it, despite the fact that one of my close friends is always, to this day, will be like, "Hey, have you read John dies at the end yet?" I'm like, "No, I haven't. I don't have time."
Well, you really shouldn't.
I
and
know.
the second book the full title is "This Book is Full of Spiders. Dude, seriously, don't touch it," or something like that. Yeah,
and I think
it's ridiculous.
Some of that subversive kind of tongue-in-cheek nature carries over into the movie for sure. Though I don't know if he had any hand in the production of this movie whatsoever. It seemed like it was made by some guy who just had like the title of the book sent to him, and he read the summary, and he's like, "This would be a good movie." And then Paul Giamatti is an executive producer.
Yeah, I don't think that that's the case. I think that whoever made this movie is intimately, knows what this book is about. Because, like I said, the parts of the book that they do very accurately, like surprisingly accurately. There's one thing that I sort of don't love, and that's Amy and David's romance sort of just happens.
It's
but
hardly
I think
even there.
Yeah, but it's like a big thing that grows throughout the whole book, and it works a lot better there.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, everything that they do is, including turning the doorknob into a dick, and that last scene that happens is the last scene of that first book.
Okay.
Where they go to a different dimension, and then, the people in that other dimension are like, we're going to be destroyed, and you have the, whatever you need to help us. And they're like, that's too much work. And they just go back to their own dimension.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, as far as things I liked from the movie, because I like I said, I didn't read the book, so I went in knowing that it was about a drug called soy sauce that helps you break through the universe. And it is irreverent and kind of filthy in its horror. It's not clean horror. Like, the meat monster's one thing, but
Yeah.
people violently exploding, eyeballs bursting out of someone's skull,
Mm-hmm.
and there were a lot of concepts that I really enjoyed in this. And portrayals of it, like the way that the drug helps you break through this universal membrane, and
Mm-hmm.
the way that it's portrayed where he goes, I stopped worrying about that because I wasn't in the trailer anymore. And then it randomly cuts to an ammunitions factory
Yeah.
in like an unnamed part of the world, and suddenly black and white old school style film. And
Mm-hmm.
it's this kind of, it seems like there was a production team behind it that was like, all right, how can we really make this feel like the audience is tripping along
Yeah.
with the character?
Yeah, it's that scene in particular is very cool because it does sort of show you what the sauce does, because it's not just like something that lets you see the monsters and the ghosts and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It also is helpful to you. Like, it keeps, once the soy sauce is in you, it sort of keeps you protected, even if that's as convoluted as going to the ammunition factory where the cop got his bullets from, and a
Yes.
fly gets into one of the
Mhm.
bullets, and that's the one that, yeah, the whole thing is, I think we all have, and if you watch the movie, like, the soy sauce does sort of pick you,
Yeah. It's
and it won't let you
semi-sapient.
not take it.
Yeah. It's a really interesting way of handling a drug of that kind of nature by giving it its own small form of agency in the story.
Yeah.
Which, if it wasn't so well integrated into the plot, I would say is lazy writing. I could see that being, we are all forced the sauce. Yeah.
I think it's sort of like real reality where some people can't take the sauce. Like, if you give them
Yeah.
that sort of knowledge, they're not going to be able to handle it. And some people just don't want it.
Yeah. But some of this stuff, like I said, if it wasn't so well woven back in, I'd say that was lazy writing. But I think the example that really kind of solidified that for me is the one you just said about the fly being the reason that the bullet doesn't work. And then you tie it back into who's the Jamaican guy? I can't remember his name. But when he's like, that dream started 30 seconds before the thunder did. How'd your brain know it was going to happen? Like,
Yeah.
this through thread of like, how prescient is the human brain? Because that was before he did the soy sauce. But does before matter? If you do soy sauce, like, does it matter?
That's not really explained, but it's also not explained. So
Yeah.
just like everything in this movie, it sort of lets you decide, which is one of the things. I've said it before about movies, and I'll say it about this movie, and I'll say it about all three of these books, which Dylan should definitely read. They don't hold your hand. Like, stuff happens and it expects you to either deal with it or not.
What if your brain is made of sauce, like how there's GHB type components?
I'm not ready for this type of deep discussion today.
You're not ready to discuss whether the human brain is way more powerful than we give it credit for?
Oh no, the human brain is definitely way more powerful than we give it credit for, but my brain is not ready to discuss that particular deepness of topics.
That's fair.
I came here today to talk about this dumb science fiction comedy horror movie.
Yeah,
I shouldn't even say dumb.
I don't know if I'd say dumb either.
That's the thing about it. It's one of those things that is smart enough that it can be dumb. Like, if you want it, it, like, on the surface it's dumb, but when you actually like get into it, that's when it's like, oh no, that's, like you said, any of this stuff could have been lazy writing in the hands of somebody who didn't know what they were doing with it. But to get somebody who knows what they're doing with a dumb subject, it turns it into a really weird. There's a podcast like this called Jack Billings Presents Me and My Neighbor Michael that does this exact thing. Where
Did you hear my eyes roll?
I had to. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's
go
the
for it,
sort
yeah.
of thing I like is these things that are dumb on the surface, but also don't explain anything to you and expect you to be smart enough to figure out the dumb stuff that's going on.
Do you think it helped that they got an established horror director to do this? Despite the fact that this is a horror movie, but it's also got a whole really strong comedy underline.
Yeah.
Do you think getting like an actual this dude did Phantasm, like
Oh,
old school gore horror
Okay.
from the 70s, Beastmaster? Yeah. Yeah, Dan Coscarelli has a long history of doing that. Well, I wouldn't say long, but has a history of doing this sort of like cheesy over the top comedy movie.
Oh yeah. No, I think it was meant to have that B movie feel, Tina says. And I think that's absolutely right because just like, going back to the explanation that I was given of this, just like Douglas Adams made sort of a B sci-fi story out of Hitchhikers of the Hitch. You know what I'm talking about.
I do.
This gives that like cosmic horror, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. This gives cosmic horror like a B movie, and the special effects in this thing are atrocious, and I almost think it might be on purpose. The way this thing sort of looks.
Yeah. Well, I know this the budget figures for this movie aren't. I couldn't find them anywhere, but it's less than $1 million. Like, this thing did not take much money to make.
Okay.
And I thought,
well,
I was cautious. I was going to say it's cautiously charming how the special effects look.
Charming is exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
About it.
The monsters, like the giant flies in like the cage, look like sci-fi original monsters. Korok at the end is very clearly a green screen. And is very clearly like a JPEG texture that they've applied a video warp to.
The green screen in this movie is I'm going to say it's atrocious. Like it is the one scene that stood out to me is when they're in that other dimension right before they get to Korok, and Clancy Brown is there with his two ladies who are always there, and they're like in a cave, and it's like it looks like a cartoon cell behind them.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, it's fine because again, for this movie, it works. Like I think everybody who made this movie knew what they were dealing with. And if they made this movie for less than $1 million, you said?
Yeah.
To get Giamatti, Clancy Brown, I mean, I don't know how much Doug Jones gets paid these days, but
outside
I mean, he's in a lot of big movies.
He is.
So, just to get those three fairly big character actors plus these two guys to be your main characters, like that's a big part of your budget.
Yeah. Yeah, and then everybody else is pretty much an unknown. For a second, I thought the leader of like the Korok people was John Goodman. Just physically.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, they got John Goodman in a mask. And then he started talking and I'm like, no.
Yeah.
No. It's some guy named Daniel Roebuck.
That sounds like a familiar name.
He's a character actor. His most recent thing, he was in the Christploitation movie Let There Be Light with Kevin Sorbo.
Ugh.
He was in Grumpy Cat's Worst Christmas Ever.
It's not a cartoon, so he just
No.
did a voice. Oh,
No,
that
that's
wasn't a
live action,
cartoon?
baby. Oh
Oh
yeah,
my god.
it had Aubrey Plaza as the voice of the cat.
Okay, maybe that's I don't know. I don't know, man. That grumpy cat thing, that sure was a big thing for 6 months.
He worked very briefly with the same director in Bubba Hotep,
Oh, this is directed by the guy who did Bubba Hotep. That
Dan
movie rules.
Coscarelli. Haven't seen it.
It's awesome. Bruce Campbell, baby.
It's about an old Elvis, isn't it?
It's about someone who might be an old Elvis. Yes.
Oh, okay. Spoilers
No,
for a movie
that's
that's 30 years old or something.
yeah, no. It's an old Elvis and an old JFK.
Cool. All right.
Yeah, it's you want to talk about a weird movie. Bubba Hotep is a weird movie with
Okay.
a lot of heart at the end there.
Okay.
Yeah.
He was
I
on
think you'd
9
be into
episodes of Lost.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and he wasn't even a big part of the movie. Oh my god.
Sure.
I think Tina Marie is maybe had some THC before
Had some soy sauce.
we started this episode. Had some soy sauce a little bit before the episode. She's seeing stuff that's way out there.
Yeah. No, yeah. I don't know. I liked this movie way more than I expected to go into it and be like, yeah, it's kind of a corny like attempt at sci-fi horror, and I wound up liking it way more than I expected. Which I think is a positive for sure, especially for something that is based on a novel.
Yeah. Well, like I said, they did a very good job with the book of what they put into it. You could definitely tell that everybody cared about it. Nobody was phoning anything in.
Yeah.
Even the performers who weren't the greatest actors, they were still doing their best. They were still doing a thing. Some of the special effects looked very, very bad. Even those flies, I didn't think looked that bad. I didn't think the CGI looked especially terrible until they crossed over to the other dimension and everything just, like you said, looked like JPEGs that they put a filter on.
Yeah. I mean, you start using the more intensive requirements for your CGI, and you got to make do with what you can. And if that means upscaling your image and then putting like a wavy filter on it, so it looks like a massive, it looks like a biomass moving around. Yeah, so be it.
And it did also have the balls to kill the dog.
It did. The dog self-sacrificed.
Yeah.
It was on its own terms.
Yeah.
And I think that makes a difference.
Yeah, and that was another thing. It's Amy's dog, and she's a much bigger part of the book.
Okay.
So it was a bigger deal when the dog died in the book. In this, it's just sort of like almost whatever. But yeah, you get a much stronger sense of bond between Amy and the dog throughout the book. I could have used a little bit more of her, even though she definitely not the strongest actor in the thing.
I hardly noticed. She had so little to do.
Yeah, and that's too bad because she is a very interesting character. Her, I don't know, did they explain in the movie? I can't even remember because I did watch this when we were originally supposed to do it.
Yeah.
So I don't even remember. Do they explain what happened to her hand?
I don't think they mentioned it. Oh, thank you, Tina. We appreciate the comments as always. Go feed that need.
Sorry you died so many times.
Yeah.
But yeah, her hand being off is a big deal. And then she uses it, I think, a couple times in the book to open like ghost locks and stuff instead of just the one.
I thought that was a really clever incorporation of that idea. Like the idea that she's got this phantom limb and then uses it. I'm like, way too pay attention to all of your character
Yep.
details.
Yep.
And have
And
everybody feel like they've got something to do, even if it's just dying because you literally exist to foreshadow your own death. When John says, "Is he still alive?" Like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I think you're right. If you go into this without knowing really anything about it, I liked it a little bit less on the rewatch, but the first time I watched it, I had just finished the book, which is a
Okay.
bad habit of mine because I oftentimes read a book, watch the movie, and then everything sort of melds together. So I remember stuff from a movie or a part of the book being from the movie, and then I'm like, oh yeah, when this happened, and then anybody I talk to is like, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
And then I usually end up enjoying those movies more than I would have if I would have just watched the movie. And that was definitely the case with this one. But it is still, it's definitely a charming movie. And it does pay attention to those small details, and it doesn't care if you don't understand what's going on. And I appreciate that from anything that I'm consuming, whether it's a book or a movie or a television show. I like when my hand's not being held. Just let me figure it out. And if I can't figure it out, then I don't like it. Then it's not for me, and that's fine.
Sure. I did think it was interesting that John dies at the end is not a spoiler. It's technically not a spoiler. He dies like midway through. That's a spoiler, but you shouldn't be listening to this either way.
Yeah. What? Oh man, I had another thing that I liked about it. I'll remember it.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, the characters were all interesting.
The sci-fi framework I thought was a really interesting one. Just like, I love the idea of, I love sci-fi drugs that really break the mold, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, the last one that really struck me were, I don't know if you've seen Looper, but they have a drug in there where it's eye drops, and they're constantly just kind of like eye dropping casually in the background of various scenes.
Okay.
And it's supposed to be, it's like an equivalent to LSD, like, but in the future, like grim sci-fi LSD, which doesn't sound like a great time to me, but
no, grim LSD sounds like the worst use of LSD.
My metal trance band, it's awful.
Oh, good Lord.
But I just really like the idea that this drug is semi-sentient and will work to kind of like fulfill stuff that's already happened. It's this weird twisting of like causality, which you don't see very often.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. With John's phone calls, and the fact, like, he sends stuff to himself at the mall. He knows he's going to be there at a certain time. He's calling. He calls David, and he's like, have I died yet?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, you died. And he's like, all right, you have to get my body out of the police station. And yeah, so I think when you said earlier, does it matter if the dream was before they took the soy sauce? I don't think it is, because then it sort of turns you into maybe like a smaller form of Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah,
where you're just sort of existing at all points at the same time. Which, yeah, definitely, again, it's just something that could have been cheesy if it would have been in something like the Tomorrow War. But it's good because we got it. I have to get these jabs into these shitty movies.
Oh man, the Tomorrow War is trash. I'll agree with that. That movie is just the worst thought out sci-fi movie I've seen in a long time.
Yeah,
It
so
does not care about its own concept.
yeah, so you have a movie like this that was made with $1 million, with even with its cheesy, special effects, and the fact that they had to take out, the action part because they couldn't afford it. It still has way more heart than something that costs, $250 million to make and is just a big dumb spectacle.
Yeah. Wikipedia reports Tomorrow War's budget is $200 million.
That's ridiculous. And then they used it all just for special effects, and they got the cheapest writer they could find.
Yep. Oh man.
Was that based on a shitty novel?
I don't know. I don't think that's based on anything. I think that's an original IP.
Okay, because I mean, see our episode on the Tomorrow War, but there's stuff that they could have done with that. If they would have gotten somebody who gave a shit about anything that was going on or any of these characters, they could have made something interesting. You don't need $200 million to make an interesting movie.
Wikipedia lists it as the 44th most expensive movie ever made, but it's tied with a whole bunch of others at $200 million.
Yeah, that's still too much to make to make a movie.
You know what the most expensive one is?
The most expensive movie?
According
is it a
to
Marvel
Wikipedia.
movie?
No, it's not. It's a Disney movie.
It's a Disney movie. Is it one of the live action remakes?
Not in the way that you mean, I think. It is the fourth Pirates of the Caribbean movie with an officially reported budget. Do you want to guess how much this movie cost, officially reported?
$750 million. $750 million.
$379 million.
Good Lord.
That is an insane amount of money to spend on a movie like that.
Yeah. I wonder what could they have possibly spent that much money on?
Johnny Depp's budget? I don't know, man.
I guess. I mean, I was expecting more because you said that 200 million was 44th tied. So I thought it was going to go up exponentially from there. I thought 349 million.
There's a whole bunch of in between 200 million and 250 million. And then they start to jump about 10 million each until you get to 300 million, where they jump 25 million each.
And they're probably mostly terrible. Can I guess that?
Yeah. 2, 3, and 4 are the Avengers movies.
Okay.
5 is Pirates of the Caribbean and Justice League. Pirates of the Caribbean 3. Then 7 is 2 separate Star Wars movies. John Carter's number 9, which I think was unfairly maligned. It's not a great movie. But
John Carter was cool, and it's based off of a cool pulp. And I think it was marketed poorly.
Yes.
And it also had the worst title I've ever heard. Like
several of the worst titles because they changed it 3 or 4 times.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
John wasn't the pulp just called John Carter from Mars?
It was a Princess of Mars was the first one.
The Princess of Mars, okay.
Which wouldn't sell to boys, so they changed it to John Carter of Mars, which wouldn't sell to girls, so they changed it to John Carter, which doesn't sell to anybody.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they probably could have called it the Princess of Mars. We have the Princess Bride, which everybody loves.
True.
So, make a good movie. Well, they did make a good movie. I don't know. I just think it was, I think it was poorly marketed and not given enough of Disney's money to let people know, hey, we made a good movie.
Yeah. And then, of course, Batman v Superman takes up slot number 10, but whatever.
Yeah. Batman vs. Superman, I didn't think was as bad as a lot of people did. It wasn't great, but
It's
it
not.
wasn't. Yeah, I don't know. Those I'll take. It may have just been because of when it came out, and I was so sick of those Marvel movies by then. I'm like, oh, this is at least something different. It's the same ridiculous amount of time,
Yeah.
but at least it's not the same thing that every one of those Marvel movies is.
I feel that way about the first Suicide Squad, where it is awful, but it is different enough where I have a bizarre fascination with it.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've still never seen it.
yeah,
I
don't.
I looked at it. I looked at
It's
it on
ugly.
HBO Max. I'm like, I have nothing else to do. And then I looked at it and I'm like, I know Jared Leto's barely in this thing, but I can't with Jared Leto's face.
It's like I got nothing else to do, but I can find something. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then not charting on any list of expensive movies is John Dies at the End with less than $1 million, and it's an enjoyable little sci-fi weirdness exhibition.
Yeah. And it's also what, an hour 45?
Hour 40, something like
Hour
that.
40, something like that.
Yeah.
So it's a reasonable amount of time to spend on a movie.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
I was flipping through today, and I'm flipping through AMC Plus, and I'm looking at these James Bond movies that are on there, and I'm like, I don't remember these things being 3 hours long, but some of them are like 2:45,
Yeah.
and it's like the Sean Connery ones, and those are boring. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but I don't like most of the Sean Connery Bonds.
No, we're 2 for 2 on not particularly enjoying that era of Bond. At least I can say that. So that means
Yeah.
that the Real Boys Fully does not support old James Bond. I can say that officially because nobody's here to say otherwise.
I have a feeling that some of these guys are going to be like, he was the first one, so he was the best one, because we have a lot of nostalgia hounds in this group.
Yeah, whatever. So yeah, I don't know. John dies at the end. Do you have anything else to say about this? I think I hit on everything I kind of had.
Yeah, no, the movie is enjoyable. I'm definitely going to give it a fairly high rating. I had a fun time with it while I was watching it. I would definitely recommend reading the book first and then watching it, so you can sort of fill in what's not there.
Yeah.
Because there's enough there that you can fill it in pretty easily.
Okay.
I also, the second book, not as good. The third book is great. Of that series. John doesn't die in any of them. But yeah, check it out. Find John Dies at the End at your local Goodwill or whatever, and
your local Redbox.
Yeah.
It's not on Redbox. This movie's almost 10 years old.
Yeah, no, it was on Netflix?
Crackle?
And also, yeah, I was going to
Netflix.
say it was on at least 3 of those free ones, Pluto and Crackle and whatever. So yeah, it's definitely worth your time to watch this movie. But yeah, I got nothing really else to say about it. It's fun, and it has heart, and it does care about what it's doing.
Yes.
Which is very rare, especially now in these 3-hour spectacle fests of movies that we've been watching. It was refreshing to get to a movie where stuff was happening that made sense with the rest of the stuff that was happening in the movie.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. So yeah, do we want to get into reels? It's about that time. We made it again. Just you and I.
The good ones, the backbone of the Real Boys.
Backbone's useless. That's something to move it around. All right.
Yeah, I'm gonna give this thing. I've been in between a 6 and an 8 the entire time since I watched it up until this very moment. and I couldn't land on any of it. So I'm just going to give it a 7. I'm going to land right in the middle of those two. I'm going to give it a 7. It's definitely worth watching, and you're going to have a good time with it. Whether you read the book or not, you're going to have a fun time with this. Watching a couple of assholes get their asses beaten.
Yeah.
Because they do get pretty beat up in this thing. Because they're not fighters, and they're fighting these monster things.
Yeah.
So, and also like a cop that is responsible for all of it, or at least responsible for covering it up.
Yeah. Kind of, yes.
An unpleasant character is that cop.
Yes. Yes.
Which I also enjoy a movie where the cops are unpleasant.
Yes, but even though it's just us two, we're not getting political on the real boys.
Yeah.
We'll save that for No Time to Binge.
We'll have enough time to talk about unpleasant cops on Monday as well.
Yeah. Oh yes. We'll get into that in just a second. Reels, I'm giving this an 8. I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I was very surprised. It didn't do anything that really. I can excuse shaky effects. I can excuse bad effects pretty easily if the rest of the movie gives it a really nice kind of like consistent, detailed, and conscientious. I guess conscientious is a weird word to use, but you're right in that it feels like everybody cared about the production of this movie. Mm-hmm. And I can excuse not having the budget to make your alien monster computer look as good as a $375 million movie.
Yeah.
And this, I recommend this to people who want something that's sci-fi that's a little out of the norm. It's a little unconventional. It's got, the story felt like it had momentum. There were no moments that it felt like it really dragged for me. Like when it feels like something is about to slow down, either soy sauce will pick it back up or another character will show up. I'm like, all right, cool. They know how to maintain their pacing.
Mm-hmm.
So
this is another movie, and I'm going to talk about this a lot on Monday as well. It doesn't waste any of its minutes. It's not a ton of minutes, and it doesn't waste a single one of them. Everything that happens, even when it does slow down, it's so that when that next thing happens, it like jolts you back into it. So it's one of the better paced movies that we watched for this. It's not like a movie where we had to sit for 40 minutes before anything happens.
Right. So I think my 8 and your 7 gives us straight like 15 out of 20, 7.5. Totally fair.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly reasonable.
Yeah.
I think that's a perfect score for this.
Yeah. So that has been our discussion on John Dies at the End. 7.5 out of 10, which, like we said. Michael, do you want to talk about what's coming up on Monday?
What's coming up on Monday is, now that I've rewatched it, might be my second favorite movie of all time, but is technically my number 3 movie of all time. Paul Verhoeven's 1987 masterpiece, Robocop. Yeah. And it's one of those movies that, you say, oh yeah, my third favorite movie or whatever is Robocop, and people are like, it does have sort of a dumb title, and Verhoeven thought the same thing. But when you watch the movie, there's a lot going on in that movie.
I really like Robocop. I'm really excited to watch it. And I thought the original was good too, but I'm surprised to see the remake on your list.
Get out of my dick, Dylan.
No, the 2014 movie is a defensive drone warfare, and I can't do that.
Yeah.
But no, the original one is really good. It's got a lot going for it. And I like Paul Verhoeven, so. Yeah, and
I was very happy when we rewatched Starship Troopers for the wheel. I was like, I hope this thing holds up. And it really did. I think I liked it better now than I did back when I saw it originally. And I think that might happen with Robocop. Like every time I watch it, I like it better.
Yeah.
Unlike the sequels, where every time I watch them, I like them less.
Just rewatch the first one. Yeah. You don't need a PG-13 Robocop for Robocop
No,
3.
we do not need RoboCop's PG-13 written by noted racist Frank Miller
Frank Miller.
and played by the guy who I always get confused with Robert Patrick, but is not Robert Patrick.
I think I know who you mean, but it's definitely
You
not
do.
Robert Patrick.
You do.
Yeah.
It's Robert John. God, we were just talking about
They
this
both
in
have
the car
same
today.
name.
His first name is Robert, and he has
God.
two. It's like Robert John something. Yeah, he
right.
sounds like a serial killer, but he's in a bunch of stuff, and he's
Yeah.
good. Like I
All right.
like him, but he's just the guy who's not Robert Patrick.
If you go by a 3-name name, you're probably a serial killer.
Yeah,
And
probably.
I think on that note, Michael Patrick Colby. I don't know what
Are
your
we
middle
go-
name is, so I filled that
are-
in.
Do you have the reel pulled up so that we can do our 2-week?
Oh, are we doing the wheel? Sure, we can do that tonight.
Yeah.
I didn't know if we wanted to do that on Monday with everybody here.
Fuck everybody else.
All right, hey, we gave them plenty of warning on this.
We
one.
gave them plenty. They know when the show is. Let's just spin the wheel.
All right, cool. Let me get.
We got
John Dies
time
at
on
the
this
end up
episode to spin the wheel.
there. Yeah. Oh no. We're down to 15 movies on the wheel. We're officially whittling it down, but that's okay.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's okay. We'll get some more on there.
Yeah, whatever. Give me just a second to pop that guy up on screen.
So
There it is.
Are there any movies that you want to pop up here? Give me the one that you want to pop up and the one that you don't want to pop up.
I would love to see everybody's reaction to Tremors. Oh man, I'm trying to think of what like movies I have around. I would be interested to see what people would think of Mandy, but
Oh, dude, Mandy is awesome.
I love Mandy, but
The-
I'm curious to see what a wider opinion of it would
Yeah.
be.
I don't know that it has wide appeal, but
Yeah.
Mandy was one that I watched the first time and I was like, that was pretty cool, but it's on the Shudder Live thing a lot.
Yeah.
So I ended up watching it a bunch of times, and every time I watch it, I'm like, oh no, this is better. This is so good. Like Mandy is awesome.
Mandy's really good, but I'm
Yeah.
not going to put that on the wheel. What about you? Is there something you would want to put up on here, or something you don't want to put up on here?
I would love for everyone to watch Ravenous.
Oh,
I
yeah.
keep saying it.
You keep talking about it.
It's a Civil War period piece about cannibals.
Okay.
And I think people would like. I actually think most people would like it. It's like a horror drama, very well acted. Yeah, it's a really cool movie.
Okay. Out of this list, I think Showgirls would make the best Real Boys episode.
Yeah, let's just make it. Once everybody's top fives are done, can we just go through all the Paul Verhoeven movies that we haven't
Sure.
done on the actual show?
Turn it into a Paul Verhoeven podcast. That's fine. by
I'm
me.
into it. I am
All right.
into it.
Should I roll this? Are we good?
Roll it. Let's get
All right.
rubber. Stop it
Let's
at
go.
rubber so that because
Yeah,
I do want to see what a wider audience thinks of rubber.
Nope. We're doing Greasy
Ah.
Strangler. That's
Yeah.
definitely Greasy Strangler. Oh my god.
boy.
Oh god. This is gonna be a trip.
Oh god, get ready to throw up, everybody. In
It's the
2
best
weeks
John
we're
Waters
watching
movie
the
that was not made by John Waters.
Ugh.
Isn't that with Elijah Wood? No, I'm thinking of something else.
Yeah, you're thinking of Maniac?
Not Maniac. There's a different
That-
one where he wears like a tight turtleneck and has a mustache.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
But the remake of
God.
Maniac is also great.
This is gonna be that's gonna be an interesting episode.
Mhm.
It's free on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, hopefully people watch it and come on the show.
It's gonna be you and I talking about this fucking movie. But yeah, so Real Boys, you've just listened to Michael and I talk about John Dies at the End. On Monday, you can tune in at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for Michael's number 3 movie, Robocop, which is fantastic. And in 2 weeks' time, 9 p.m. Eastern time, we'll be here to talk about The Greasy Strangler. And ideally, those shows will have more people on them.
Yeah.
We'll see. This time of
The
year,
Monday shows have been populating pretty well again.
Yeah,
they've
been pretty heavy.
And I think RoboCop's going to be a good draw to get people in.
Yeah. Do you want to do some self-promotion, Michael? Tell people where to find you.
Oh, man, I don't remember what the names of all my shows are. Jack Billings Presents Haunted Apartment Complex. New episodes. They're really freaking good, man. Generation Clash is a podcast where me and my kid talk about music. I Love This Terrible Game is another panel show where me and a bunch of other queers just talking about video games. And then No Time to Binge, which if you're listening to this live tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern Pacific time,
We got a new time slot.
we're going to do an episode where I'm hoping we're all in costumes.
Yeah.
But we're all going to be in costumes and we're going to be talking about what's this show?
Into the Badlands.
Into the
AMC's
Badlands.
post-apocalyptic kung fu series.
Yeah, it sounds cool as hell.
I love
We're
it.
watching it tomorrow before we
whatever.
record.
Yeah. I don't watch anything until like I look at how long it takes to watch it, and I round up to the nearest hour and start it before the show. It's got to be fresh.
Yeah, I don't do that.
Or
I watch it
don't
whenever
watch it,
I
and
have
just
a spare
lie.
2 hours.
That's fair. Yeah.
All right, so yeah, that's what we'll be doing.
Oh. And then, of course, I'm Dylan from Some Nobodies. You can check us out at Twitching Upstream most Tuesdays, where my buddy Zach and I do our little writer's room meeting, and we pull you in, and we base it off your comments. You can contribute and sometimes affect the general direction of things we do. You can also listen to Silicon Angels. You listen to CYOP Appeal, which is a Choose Your Own Adventure non-copyright infringing podcast, which was partially developed on Talking Upstream. We've got short film going. We've got various other things in production. We're both on No Time to Binge, which is a really fun recap. I'll say it's a recap show.
Yeah, if I'm gonna say if you started watching No Time to Binge and fell off,
It's a good
come
time
on
to get
back.
in.
It took a turn for the
It's
very weird.
it's so much better than those first 4 or 5 episodes.
Yeah,
Not to say those were bad. We took it too
they were
seriously.
fine, but we were figuring out what the show was. I think we figured out the
I think we
show.
got it.
There's a lot of talk about semen. There's a lot of it's just a really
That's the only bullet point you're going to mention.
if I didn't that's the only one I can think of off the top of my head. But if I wasn't a part of Jack Billings Presents, that would be by far the weirdest podcast
Yeah,
that I knew
it's a
about.
fun one. Yeah.
Yeah, that one's really fun. So definitely
Yeah.
check that out.
And of course, thanks to everybody who comes in and leaves a comment, everybody watching. There's one of you right now. That's fine. Whatever. It's fine. I get it. There are only 2 of us. And we don't have star power to draw on like Chris Harvey.
We never have that guy.
He's on occasionally. And when he's on, the show is elevated.
Yeah.
We miss you, Chris. We hope you're doing
We do
okay.
miss you, Chris.
You're doing fine. I know you're doing great. You're doing great things. Anyway, that's all I'm gonna say. Check out let's see. Cloud Chronicles of Jerry and Blaze. I don't have my notes prepared. Oh no.
Oops, caught me smoking.
Oops Caught Me Smoking with DL Smokes. And their combined podcast, DL Smokes and Jerry and Blaze Do Bet That, which is a sports podcast. It's pretty fun. I don't do sports, but it's fun to listen to these guys talk anyway. We've got
Justin Wallace
with
is
Carpool
about
Shenanigans.
Carpool
And-
Shenanigans, which ended, but he's starting up a new one, which is Anime Shenanigans, which is all about anime. And
Yeah,
I'll tell you what,
chance to call it Shenanime again.
yeah,
Maybe they
if
didn't miss
you-
the chance.
if you only know Justin Wallace from this show, you don't realize how freaking weird and funny that guy is. He's also on Jack Billings Presents Me and My Neighbor Michael for a couple episodes, but his show is so out there sometimes.
Yeah.
That guy is weird.
Oh, man. And then Phil Better, of course, a podcast mogul with Invest in Yourself, a digital entrepreneur podcast. He's got a new one called People I Keep in My Basement, which must use a lot of voice actors or collected audio. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that one. I don't usually listen to interview shows, but that one's really interesting because it's just like Phil talking and asking people questions like about the boring stuff that he likes, maple leaves and what type of syrup is the best, what kind of gravy goes best on poutine, and then just them screaming. And
I will
very
say
avant-garde.
I will say he needs to get his guests a better mic because it's very muffled and I can hardly make out what they're saying.
Yeah. I definitely, you would think that for somebody with that much money, he would be able to afford a bunch of better microphones.
You only get money by not spending it, Michael. I haven't been listening to his podcast. Anyway, that's where you can find all of us real boys. If you're not listening to The Real Boys, Mondays and every other Friday. We'll see you Monday with Cyber Cop.
Yep, Cyber Cop. That's the name of the movie.
We'll see you Monday with Cyber Cop. Bye, everybody.
Drop these. Everybody drop these. Everybody drop these. Everybody drop these. Everybody.
Oh, he wants to go off-road.
You ain't gonna shoot that shot when you get the land?
Yo, he was right on my ass, man.
You were wide open.
Who wrote this? I did.
Ask him if he got the letter.
Did you get the letter?
What letter?
What's up, man? About to catch a fade, huh?
Hello. My name is Inigo Montoya.
Living dead.
Drop these. Everybody.
Let the hate flow through you.